Let's define entrepreneurship. What is an entrepreneur? What makes some entrepreneurs successful while others struggle? So these are questions that I often have when I think about the definition of entrepreneur. What does entrepreneurship mean to you? What is an entrepreneur? There are entrepreneurial characteristics. And a couple questions I have about that are there personal characteristics that are universal to all entrepreneurs? Does that mean that if entrepreneurs are successful, do they have some type of personal characteristic? Maybe they're energetic, maybe they're likable, maybe they are deep thinking. Are these all characteristics that are universal to all entrepreneurs? And if so, what are those characteristics that are going to lead to somebody being successful or not? Next question I would entertain is, are entrepreneurs born with these characteristics or can they be learned? So these are good discussion questions and they're ongoing all the time. And we have scholars studying them to see if there are ingrained characteristics. One of the things that I'd like to think is that there are many things that we can work with. Our characteristics, our knowledge, and our skills that we can do to improve the chances of success. So we focus in this course on what are the things that we can actually work on in order to drive success. And we'll get to that later. But meanwhile, let's use the definition of entrepreneur that I enjoy the best. Entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity without regard to resources currently controlled. And this was written by Howard Stevenson. Take a moment to think about this quote. Entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity without regard to resources currently controlled. So a couple of questions here when I'm reading this definition. What does the pursuit of opportunity mean? And what does without regard to resources currently controlled mean? What are resources and who's controlling them? So resources are anything that an entrepreneur needs to start and run a business. Examples of resources include funding, equipment, knowledge, skills, ability, and more. So if you're thinking of starting a business, and let's say it is a graphic design business, what are some of the funding, equipment, knowledge, skills, ability, and more you would need for that business? So funding is the money that you would need to maybe purchase equipment or rent out a space that you could work. And what would the equipment be? A computer, internet, lighting, tablet for designing. Those are all things that you actually need that are equipment. But if you're going to run this type of business, you also need the knowledge. You need to know which programs are useful for a graphic designer. You have to have the skill to be able to use those. And you also need to have the ability to do the work, okay, quickly. So if you get a job, you have the knowledge, you know how to do it, you have the skill, you can actually operate the computer system, and you have the ability to do it fast enough where you're going to make a profit on it and your customers are going to be happy with the work. Know what you can't control, control your actions, take action on what you can control. And this is written by Matthew Rivaldi. In this quote, one of the things that we need to learn as entrepreneurs is what are areas that we can control in our business? And we can control the actions that we take in order to be successful. And if we can understand what are the actions that we can control and we can initiate those actions, we have a much more likely chance of being successful. So let's look at some of these things, these areas: knowledge, skills, ability to run the business. So some of the areas that we'll work on in this course is building knowledge. And so knowledge is simply the ability to understand or know about certain areas. So knowledge that we'll learn in this class is we'll learn about permits and regulations required to run a business, how to legally form a business, why industry relationships are important, and we'll look at the financials, including insurance and hiring practices for your business. So we'll learn about all these things. The skills is what we practice in order to be successful. So in an earlier video, I showed someone riding a bike over a jump and hopefully landing that jump. You can read about riding a bicycle. You can read about jumping a cliff and landing it successful, but until you practice it, you're not going to be able to do it. So when we talk about skills, it's the practice of developing the work that we can use and need to start a business. So some of the skills that we'll practice in this course is we'll practice leadership by working in groups and assigning tasks and dividing up responsibilities. That requires leadership. We'll practice accounting by doing financial projections. We'll conduct market research to understand if we can successfully and feasibly run a small business. And we'll create profitable business models. Those are all things we'll practice and work on to become successful. Next is action. We use the word action in this course rather than ability, mainly because entrepreneurs need action to move forward. Entrepreneurs don't have an employee or boss telling them what to do. They are the ones that must initiate the action. So we have created activities and assignments that spur action, encourage students to take action in pursuing their opportunities. So as we go back to the quote before, it's a pursuit of opportunity, right? So we need to pursue and we need to take action in order to be successful. So that means pursuing opportunity, networking with classmates and industry leaders, conducting research, sales calls, fulfilling orders if we can. These are all things that we can take action on in the program in order to help us successfully run our business. If we put all these parts together, having the knowledge to run a business, practicing the skills to run a business, and taking action, we can create the entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs figure out the opportunity and then make resources available. And this is very different than what you may be used to. If you've ever been an employee in a business, employees are generally given resources. They're provided by the company, and then they make whatever those resources provided work for whatever situation they're in. Entrepreneurs need to figure out what those resources are in order to pursue their opportunity. Entrepreneurs require grit, which we will discuss in a future video, vision, resource, and team building. The difference between an entrepreneur and a manager, someone that plans, organizes, directs, and controls businesses and the actions in order to start and grow a business, is entrepreneurship often means they have to create the vision and develop the plan. They need to figure out what those resources are. And oftentimes, people starting a small business will play all the roles that we've discussed. They will play the entrepreneur, they will play the role of the employee, and they will play the role of the manager. So it is a delicate balance to figure out what are the different roles that we're going to undertake in launching a business, and how do we play them successfully. As the business grows, the role of owner-operator will transition from entrepreneur to manager over time. Do we have the ability and desire to handle these roles? Up next is our grit model.